on, let's get some of the lads together. Let's have a go here. Okay, yeah, all right. Go on, fellas. Get around a go. Let's have a good go. Come on, then. You ready? Come on, you lot. Go on, then.
Oh, 'tis our delight for the red and white. The Imps are here to stay. Oh, 'tis our delight for the red and white. The Imps are here to stay. Lincoln City are the team, the Reds is their name. Stinsel Bank is their home ground and football is their game. So come and cheer them on, you lads, support them all the way. Oh, 'tis our delight for the red and white. The Imps are here to stay. Oh, 'tis our delight.
Morning all. It's been a while. Quick morning dog walk. Slight issue this morning. The dog doesn't want the walk, which is an issue. So we might not be going for all that long. I'm not quite sure where he is. Lazy dog. And it's also very windy. So if you're struggling to hear or anything like that, please let me know and we'll wrap it up early. Windy up here in the Wolds. So apologies for not being on for a while. Obviously last week I had COVID, which meant I wasn't really walking the dog all that far nor feeling like talking to people very much. So my apologies for that. And obviously we did chat the week before. Now, look, I'm not going to cover the Fleetwood game because it pains me. It felt like a loss when it came away from the ground. I know we got a point. I know we're still unbeaten. I know there's positives. So I don't want to come across as one of these constantly negative people. But I didn't come away from the ground on Saturday with very many positives. I always look for the silver lining on the cloud. And, for me, when you 2-0 up at home, under any circumstances, you shouldn't end up not winning that game, particularly when you're 2-0 up against a team who I think were of dubious quality. But, looking at that, you look at the injuries that we had, you look at the fact that the transfer window really hasn't been all that kind to us. I think we've made, one signing maybe since Jay Ben, potentially, was that Jordan Garrick? Now, obviously, Jack Diamond at the weekend makes it 2. But it's been very, very slow. I would imagine behind the scenes that there has been some struggle bringing players in. I don't know that for a fact. I know that there's been lots of kind of rumour and counter rumour stuff, like, for instance, Alex Gilby has been mentioned an awful lot. Where I was talking to people at the club on Saturday, there's a suggestion that perhaps that was never as close as some supporters felt that it might be. I don't know. I'm not really privy to a lot of that information anymore. But I was told on Saturday that we were very close to Jack Diamond, and on Monday he lands. So to touch on that, first of all, to touch on Jack Diamond, what we're going to expect, well, we've certainly got a fast, tricky player, a player that did it in League Two last season to a very good level, 14 goals and a handful of assists. I think it was 4 assists, so 18 goal involvements in 45 games is goal involvement every kind of 2.5, maybe 2.5 to 3 games, which I think is decent. He had a better season in League Two than Charles Burnham, and Charles Burnham had a very good season as well. So, on paper, he looks like he's ready to make the step up. He has played significant League One football, played a full season for Sunderland, starting 11 or 12, came off the bench kind of 13 times as well. So I think he was involved in 24, 25 games the year that they made the playoffs and were beaten by us. And they weren't a bad side that year. Remember, they beat us 4-0 at our place. He won the penalty. He scored one of the goals. It was probably his best performance in a Sunderland shirt. And quite often you see, don't you, when a player moves to another team and they've had a good game against them. Cohen Bramall, for instance, moving to Rotherham after having a good game at their place last season. I mean, that's not the extent of a team scouting, but it does tend to happen that way. And so Jack Diamond has come here. He had a good game for us, against us rather. Very much coveted by Simon Weaver at Harrogate. And some people might look at it and say, well, it's great he did well in League Two, so did Theo Archibald, and we let him go. The Theo Archibald thing has to stop coming out. I did see it a little bit yesterday. You've got to remember that Theo Archibald was one of the players that handed his notice in to Mark Kennedy whilst Mark was the manager of Macclesfield. So I think Theo's departure from Lincoln City, although people like myself saw Mark Kennedy, Theo Archibald, Macclesfield and went, oh, well, they must get on. I think the deeper story is that probably is departure was always inevitable. I know Orient are doing well now, but they're doing well in League Two. We don't want players that are doing well currently in League Two. We want ones that did well in League Two and are ready to step up. And that's where I think Burnham and Diamond come from. I think one thing I have to say about our transfer policy this summer, it's gone very much against the last couple of years. You know, we prided ourselves on high quality loans from, I say, the Premier League. You know, a couple of years ago when we were when Michael first came in, obviously we took Tyrese John Jules on loan. We took Connor Coventry on loan. The following season, Brennan came from Forest. To be fair, very, very good loan. But you look at the other players, we had like Robbie Gotts, Leeds United, who are now Premier League. I don't think they were at the time, but we had TJ Ioma come in on loan. And last season, Brooke Norton-Cuffy, Lewis Fiorini, we've had Morgan Rogers. You know, we've very much gone for exciting young players from the Premier League. Young players, but exciting players. This season we've completely changed that. And we haven't, I don't think, apart from the goalkeeper, I think all of our loans have come out of the Championship. I mean, we've got Tashan from Stoke. We've got Jordan Garrick from Swansea. We've now got Jack Diamond from Sunderland. It looks to me like we're signing players that we have a realistic chance of picking up permanently at the end of their contract. Now, it does for me give the squad something more of when I say pedestrian look, I don't mean that to sound negative, but we feel like a League One squad now. And I think, you know, when you've got Brooke Norton-Cuffy, Lewis Fiorini, even Tyrese John Jules, Connor Coventry, players like that, you feel like you may be a step further forward. You're not, because those players have to go back. And we've seen it season after season, players who have done well for us gone on to do well in the Championship, and we kind of got, made in Lincoln, but it hasn't benefited us at all. It might have won us a few more points, but it doesn't benefit us majorly. And it's interesting that this year we haven't looked to pull on those contacts. And even as recently as December, when I went into the EPC, I was with David Pickwell, God bless him, that night, and we kind of listened to the plan, and there was lots about the way that we're courting bigger clubs, the way that we're trying to attract them to us, we're trying to attract their players to us. And here we are 7 or 8 months on, and aside from Carl Rushworth, who's a very good signing, we don't appear to have done anything with that. And the players that we're being linked with on loan, for instance, we're being linked obviously with Asula, the boy Asula from William Asula from Sheffield United Championship. Now, I don't know whether this is a wage thing. You know, you've got Alex Myton's gone Sheffield Wednesday today. He would have been brilliant at Lincoln City, but there's no way we're paying Alex Myton star wages. And I wonder if that's also partly to do with restrictions on players being able to be loaned out at Premier League clubs. I don't know. I find it very, very strange that we haven't picked up a single high-profile loan from a Premier League club. So I don't know the reasons behind it. I'm not criticising it right now, but I felt that what would benefit us this season, I felt it at the beginning of the transfer window, and I feel it now, is getting the vavavoom, the wow factor from a player who was just massively unpredictable and brilliant. And if we were in for, and forgive me if I get his name wrong, but Sakraki, the boy from Palace who went to Charlton, he scored a couple of goals for them. So if we were in for them, we are maybe still fishing in those waters and just missing out, whether that's wages. I mean, Charlton, Crystal Palace, location-wise, it was always looking likely. But it does just interest me. It does interest me. And the thing is, the one position that we need now that we might have to explore the loan market for probably is the one where you would say we don't want a Premier League youngster. We don't want a Premier League holding midfielder to come in. We need a player like a Liam Bridcut or a Richie Smallwood or a Tom Naylor or somebody like that who's going to come in and calm everything down and manage our own youngsters. Now, I wonder if part of the recruitment plan has been that actually we've got so many young players of our own that we want to bring on, that by bringing in young players from Premier League teams, we're pushing them further down the pecking order. Why bring in a Brooke Norton-Cuffy style player on the left when we've got our own Sean Rowan, who arguably, in my eyes, was probably our man of the match on Saturday? You know, Ted Bishop scored twice, but I thought Sean had a really good game until he went off injured. Why bring in a Premier League midfielder when we want Lasse Sorensen and Max Sanders to progress? These are the players that we've brought in to develop, to make to our own and to sell on, you know, to generate interest. So we need Lasse Sorensen and Max Sanders to be playing football. The balance is getting those players enough football, but also we make sure that we have enough points to stay out of being embroiled in the relegation battle. And my honest feeling at the moment is that we're 1 or 2 players away from doing that. Jack Diamond's one, brilliant. Is Jack Diamond the sort of player that We thought we might sign to the wide areas. Jordan Garrick, I'm not so sure. Then you look at the end of last season with, we signed Morgan Whittaker and we signed Liam Cullen. They came from the Championship, and I thought Morgan Whittaker had a decent loan spell. Liam Cullen not so much. I thought Morgan Whittaker had a decent loan spell. So I suppose it doesn't matter where you sign them from, but it's an interesting conversation to be had. And the next couple of days are hugely interesting. Hugely interesting. And I will go through your sort of hellos, lots of people saying hello, but Sean Simons has said thoughts on Scully. And I think it's a more critical conversation to be had than people probably think. That's my feeling on this. Because I think if we were to sell Anthony Scully between now and the transfer window closing, I think that would be beneficial in terms of the wider squad, because I think it would then give us money to go out and grab a couple of the targets that we've been keeping an eye on over the course of the summer that perhaps finance-wise are just a little bit out of our reach. It does make me wonder, signing another left winger, so Vernon can play there, Diamond can play there. It does make me wonder if there might be something in the pipeline for Skulls. I did chat to him briefly last week, and just kind of, I didn't push him for any information on it, but he was focused on the Fleetwood game. He was looking forward to getting on the score sheet. He didn't, unfortunately, but he was looking forward to kind of having a go at that game. So, I didn't get a feeling for him that he was want away, but I do get a feeling from the club that, when I say that's the model, that's the reality for clubs of our size. If you've got a player like Anthony Scully who scored 38, 39, 40 goals over, 2.5 seasons or whatever he's been with us, that's a serious amount of goals in 105 games. He averages a goal every 2.5 games, something like that. And they're not all penalties. There's a lot of spectacular goals there. He will be, what the hell that is. He'll be catching the eye anyway. He'll be catching the eye of teams. And if somebody's going to come in and offer us, for a player like Scully, when you look at some of the other sales that go through, I think you've got to be looking at 750,000. I might be, a little bit over the top with that, given the contract situation. But you've got to be looking at a decent amount of money to come in, and if that comes in, it maybe frees us up to go and do good stuff later on. Unfortunately, the transfer market is very stagnant. If you look above us, teams that have been linked with him, Sunderland, for instance, don't have a manager at the minute. Are Sunderland going to risk going out and paying close to, maybe £1 million all in, when with add-ons and everything, for a player that the manager might not fancy, the new manager? Not so sure. Blackpool waiting to sell Josh Bowler. Blackpool's one of the kind of mooted destinations for him. Scholes certainly played the best of his football under Michael Appleton. He had a really, really good season, 2020-21. Really sort of impressive season. Last season under Michael Appleton, I think Scully would have hit more than 20 goals if he hadn't got injured in autumn. So, you'd be talking about somebody now who scored 45, 46 goals had he not been injured in those 2 seasons at the end of the middle of last season, rather. So you can see why Blackpool might want to sign him. If they sell Josh Bowler, who, by the way, we were rumoured to be in for last summer, and had we gone up, we may have signed Bowler had we beaten Blackpool. If we had, we'd be looking at selling him now for £4 million to Forest. That's how close we were to elevating this club to a different level. But anyway, so if they sell Blackpool, then they're going to have, and the interesting thing is, by the way, it's not undisclosed fee. They're talking £4 million. So people are going to know what Blackpool have got. It puts you in a bargaining position. And if they're rushing to sign players, it maybe puts us in a position where we can ask for a larger fee. You don't know. But then we've got to be able to spend that fee as well. I would not envy Jez's job right now and Liam's job, because there's so much juggling, so much balancing. It's going to be crazy, and the next couple of days are just going to be, whatever happens, people are going to say we've left it till last minute, and trust, they haven't. We've been working hard on deals for so long. I've kept in the loop a little bit, not all the time. I don't know players' names, for instance. The club are very reticent about that sort of thing now, and rightly so. But when we did the interview with Mark Kennedy at the ground, Jez was there. He did a presentation. He spent more time outside on his phone talking to players, and every time someone went out for a cigarette or someone went out in some fresh air, he moved away. So obviously, there's sort of not secrecy, but it's just about being kind of careful with what you're saying and in front of whom, and yet we haven't made any major significant signings since then. It might have been Danny Mandrew might have come in since then. I'm not sure. So, there's been lots of work going on. We haven't sat there twiddling our thumbs going, we'll get the best deals in the last week. It doesn't happen like that. It doesn't. And so many people, and I'm not going to say narrow-minded because that sounds negative, but people who don't fully understand what goes on at the club and what goes into bringing a player in. You know, Jack Diamond has been close. How long has he been rumoured for? 4 weeks, 5 weeks? At least. It was 4 weeks ago I saw his name first, were linked with City. I didn't believe it at the time, I'll be honest. I just thought it was another one of those kind of incessant names that gets rolled off. There was the Cardiff boy, Max Waters. I saw him linked to the club. There's the Tyler Walkers, the George Grants. You know, incessant. I report on things that come from proper journalists, you know, reputable blue tick. And when I say reputable, Alan Nixon writes for the Sun, but you know, people who have a track record. So I'll report on that. So I didn't expect Jack Diamond, decent signing, but there's work to be done. There's work to be done, and I think a lot of that does hinge on the Scully situation. Honestly, I think that people are talking about us losing Scully as if it's going to be the worst thing. It's not going to be a good thing. You don't want to lose your best players. And people say, well, we need to hold on to our best players. But that doesn't work. It doesn't work at this level. It's naivety. People say we need to hold on to our best players, do not understand football. I'm sorry, but they don't. If you think Lincoln City can afford to hold on to a £750,000 attacker and lose him for nothing in a year or two's time, honestly, I use this word very, very lightly. I don't use this word lightly, rather. You're delusional. It's that simple. You really are. It's, yeah, it's not the model. It's not, this is what Jez wants us to do. This is what Liam wants us to do. This is fact. We sold Glenn Cockrell twice in the 80s. We sold Trevor Peake. We've sold Steve Thompson. We sold Gordon Hobson. We didn't do it because we're a selling club. Everyone's a selling club. Like Ajax probably could buy anybody they want in the Dutch league. But when it comes to Man United wanting their players, they're a selling club. And you have to understand your level. And if we sell Anthony Scully, I love Skulls. I think he's a great guy, lovely guy, good player, good footballer. Can never quite work out where his best position is, but he's got that. He just knows every so often he can conjure something up just from absolutely nowhere. I like him a lot. But at the end of the day, Lincoln City have to sell players like that to survive. And I'm not talking about us being cash strapped. I'm talking about surviving and building. I had an interesting kind of Twitter exchange. I can't remember who it was with now, about club size on social media. It was Saturday morning. And I suggested, I don't think we're any bigger than Cambridge or Exeter or Port Vale. I don't think we're bigger than those clubs. And sort of, I can't remember who it was. It was a perfectly reasonable conversation. He said, I can't understand how we're not bigger than them. We get these crowds. We've been in this division longer. And we've got this ground. And I can understand that. We've got the training ground. We've got the infrastructure. But at the same time, we are only 6 months of bad results away from having 6,500 or 7,500 there on Saturday. Yes, it was the bank holiday weekend. Yes, the opposition brought next to nothing. But, you know, we were 8 to 8,500 at games like that 2 years ago. There is a steady drop-off, and that steady decline will happen. If we spend 4 or 5 seasons, or even 2 seasons, or even half a season battling at the bottom end of this table, that will drop off. Season ticket sales have remained relatively good, but you struggle to attract the footfall. Don't forget there was the offer. Gold members could bring somebody in, still only 7,500. Cambridge and Exeter City are only a decent cup run away, and they've both had decent cup runs in the past. I seem to remember them both having played Man United in recent years. They're both only a decent cup run away from putting another 500, 600, 700 on their average skate of 5,000, 6,000. It soon very slowly creeps up. Exeter City have had their own training ground for many, many years. When I used to go on holiday down there, it was opposite a pub called the Cat and Fiddle as you head out towards Exmouth. Training ground there, still there now. So they've had that. Yes, we've got nicer facilities. Yes, we are progressing. We are a bigger club than we were when we were playing Welling and things like that. But I think club size doesn't evolve like over 3 weeks or 6 weeks. It evolves over 10, 15 years. And the fact is, at this moment in time, I believe we are still the size of Exeter. We are still the size of Cambridge United. Cambridge sold a player or lost a player to Bolton Wanderers this summer. Last year or the year before, a couple of years ago, they were both in the same division. But in terms of club size, Bolton are a bigger club. And when we look at this division, yes, we think we are a big club because we play Ipswich and Charlton and Sheffield Wednesday and Derby and Portsmouth week in, week out. But the honest truth is, when it comes to attracting players, when it comes to paying wages, we are more Exeter and Cambridge than we are Charlton and Bolton. Fact. And that has to be considered when the transfer window comes into play. And I think some people's opinions or some people's idea of what to expect in the transfer window was shaped very much by the summer that we brought in Brennan Johnson. And you could say, I suppose, the likes of TJ Ioma, we were signing really good players, Lewis Monsma, Adam Jackson and Joe Walsh might be squad members now, but they were very good signings at the time. You know, Liam Bridcut was a great signing at the time. You have to remember that summer was an anomaly. It was a cheat code. It was the summer of the wage cap. It was the great leveler. It was where teams excelled on business savvy and on coaching, not just on being the bigger club. And it was then that you could see the benefits of our training ground and our coaching staff and our methods coming into play. And it's this weekend when we loaned Jack Diamond from Sunderland, who was in League Two last year, and Sheffield Wednesday loan Alex Mighton from Forest, who was in the Championship next year. That's when you see the big club, little club difference. And when I say little club, I don't mean like, I'm not trying to be disparaging to Lincoln City, but we have to understand where we are in that food chain as supporters. And so when a signing comes in, it's all right saying, oh, it's underwhelming, or oh, Scully goes and we don't want to sell our best players. You have to understand that that's where we are, that's what we are. And I'm not playing Lincoln City down, but we do well. We do well. But at the same time, we're competing in a division. You know, we're boxing above our weight. Well, we're boxing at our weight in a division that's full of heavyweights who shouldn't be there. You know, I think we probably are the size of a League One club. What is a typical League One club? 7,000-8,000, I'd say so. Traditionally at this level, you think of the likes of Walsall and Oldham. Exeter have certainly been here for a while. Gillingham, teams like that. Oxford United, similar size to us. You don't think of Sheffield Wednesday or Ipswich Town, Portsmouth. You know, you only have to be 7 or 8. You only have to be 18 or 19 rather to have match tax cards feature in these teams if you collected those. So that's where we've got to remember that we are working within a certain restriction, and I think it does make it harder. That said, I do think that at the moment the transfer window has looked like it's still left us needing certain pieces. Maybe I would like to see 2. I'd certainly like to see a holding midfielder or a midfielder come in. But then if you sign one and he expects to play, and then Lass is out, then that investment you've made in Lass, who has had a good start to the season, is wasted. So it's a balancing act. And personally, I'd like to see another centre forward, but a big burly centre forward, the sort you can pump the ball to, the sort that Fleetwood brought on Saturday, the sort that Forest Green brought on 2 Saturdays ago, that just changed the complexion of the game. Connor Wickham, I've been critical of him, changed the complexion of the game. Because when we do go long now, and that's really good, that we go long at times, we understand about game management. We didn't do it particularly well on Saturday. But why? Because when the ball went forward, it wasn't sticking to Tom. It was a flick on and we were giving possession away. Still think we need a beast up top. And the worst thing is, do you know what? I think in the way that we play now, Dan and Lunderloo actually might even have been that. Not doing too badly at Cheltenham already. But I don't think that we're going to sign that player. And I actually think Dan and Lunderloo, to take this right the way back to the top of the conversation, might be part of the reason we haven't gone for those Premier League youngsters anymore. And partly Luis Fiorini's form going into Christmas, because those players disappeared, and then the kind of major players that you're relying on are kind of struggling to settle in. And if a player's struggling to settle in, it's better that they're your player and you can manage them how you wish. So do I think we'll sign a Premier League youngster on loan over the next couple of days? Probably not. Probably not, no. I think we've got the attacking options out wide that we now are going to settle with. I'm not going to say going to need, even if Scully goes. Got Vernham on the flank. You've got Garrick on the flank. Jack Diamond potentially. So you've got pace in those wide areas. We haven't seen a lot of that. We desperately missed that, I think, on Saturday. We desperately missed pace in the wide areas. And we desperately missed a target man who can hold the ball up. And we won't be in for him, but Cole Stockton would be another one. Kind of a big, burly player that you could pump the ball to. The lad at Oxford who got loads of stick for them, is it Matt Taylor? Proper shithouse, but another one. Stick it on his head, let him elbow a few centre halves. And I'm not criticising Tom, by the way, but sometimes I think when Tom's not having a good game, it really shows. And you know, he was back heading, he was defending well, but there was just 1 or 2 moments against Fleetwood where perhaps I thought he'd run himself into the ground, and maybe, just maybe, if we could just make that change. And people say we'll bring Charlie Kendall on, but Charlie Kendall's not the striker to bring on in that sort of space. He's the striker to start EFL Trophy games, to develop, to make him physically stronger. And I think he fights well, Charlie Kendall. But somebody put earlier on social media, again, our front 3 could be Garrick, Diamond and Kendall. It can't be that. It can't be that, because you'll just get gobbled up by defenders at this level if you play all three of those from the start in games. You might be able to play them in some games against certain teams, but if you're playing against teams who go three at the back, and there's an increasing number of teams that play three at the back, you have got to have somebody that can contest headers and win headers, and there are some big nasty defenders at this level. You just have to have somebody that can do that. Tom can do that to a degree, but when they double up on Tom, he doesn't get a lot of joy, and then I think that we see that same kind of dearth of creativity that we had last season, that just lack of ideas. We had more ideas against Fleetwood because we created. I think we actually have more attacking intent than we had last season, but because of the shift in the way that we play, and because at the moment we don't have two settled eights, so our attacking midfielders, ideally, I think probably Mandrew, Sanders and Bishop rotate, but Bishop was out wide, Ben House was playing there, Sanders was injured, obviously. Tashan, I'm not overly convinced about. He had a decent game, but we just didn't have the eights bombing on. It was Ted coming in from wide. If Ted was playing 8 and we had the wide player, it would have added a little bit more balance, I think. So, but injuries have kind of pushed us down there already, haven't they? And that's the thing. I keep this track of all the ratings that you give players, and when a player's out injured, I mark him as yellow. And already there's so many yellows on there for players that are being injured, and I don't know what it is. I don't. Obviously, Danny Mandrew's got over his initial injury, but he's now injured again. Bear in mind, we've changed most of our coaching staff and our physio staff, so you can't kind of go, well, his training's too hard, or this is right, or that's right. I don't understand it. I don't. Jordan Garrick only came on for 10 minutes on Tuesday night, injured for 10 days. Max Sanders injured. If we're going to have that for another season, and I hope we're not, then we need a bigger squad than we've got now, and we need to sell Anthony Scully and bring in 3 players or something like that, because we've got to start having that cover. Fleetwood got the point on Saturday because they were able to affect things from the bench. They brought on Jed Garner, who was excellent for them a season or two ago. I remember him catching the eye and thinking, good player, I like him. They brought on the boys, I don't remember his first name, Promise up top, the big lad. They were able to be physical. And I think that when you're a team like us, that's something you've got to look at. Shrewsbury did it very well. That's how they survive year after year. Accrington are very good at it. I don't want to see us go entirely physical, but late in the game, we've shown more of an intent to try and defend. We've shown more savvy in terms of protecting a result. So I think we just need 1 or 2 players maybe to sharpen that up. I don't think we're going to, because it doesn't always fit the recruitment model. Interesting couple of days. I hope this hasn't been too negative. I really do. I can see what we're trying to do, and if we are trying to bring players in who we might be able to sign at the end of the season, like Tashan's taken a lot of stick from people around me, and actually, if you look at him, he's really good on the ball. He provided the assist for the first goal. He was involved in the second goal. He just, I think, needs to get to speed with League One football. And remember, he's not really had that. He's almost like a Premier League kid coming in, but having had a season or 2 in the doldrums at Stoke. So, I think with Tashan, it could be 3 or 4 months before we see the best of him. I'm not being critical. I think he's a very good footballer. But I don't think that he's a footballer that you would say if he starts 40 games this season, we're going to be in the top 10 or the top 15 even, because I think he needs time to settle in and time to grow into the role. And, Lass has had a decent start to the season. He's all over the place, but at times those two, because they've got energy, and Max Sanders in the midfield, just need somebody there to gravitate round like a Liam Bridcut. I keep going back to Liam Bridcut, one of the best players I've seen in Lincolnshire in my lifetime. Injured too much. The trick is, how do you find that player, but not injured with that experience? You don't unless you pay silly money. And for me, that's what we need. And if we only signed 1 more player in the transfer window, that's the player that I'd like to see. It really is kind of I'm not going to say Conor McGrandles, because I think Conor probably wasn't the leader as much at times. And I know that I'll get pelters for this, a Scott Kerr type player, just obviously better because at League One level, but that sort of just rugged, going to sit there, going to hold, going to defend. Then you can bring Lass back if we need to go a little bit more defensive. Lass can sit alongside him. You can then go with the 2 attacking 8s. It just gives you a little bit more flexibility. At the moment, I think we're just a little bit naive in that position. And it's why we've drawn 2 games at home that we should have won. We were better than Forest Green. We were the better team. And after we scored, we went to pieces because we didn't show the kind of experience that we should have shown. And we weren't able to affect the game from the bench as they were. And it's the same with Fleetwood. We should have beat Fleetwood. We should have. There was the moment there was a foul on the edge of the area that Tom chose to play a pass when you know, a shock, put it in the back of the net, should have been a better option. One bad decision, if that goes to 3-1, they're never getting back in that game. And I think that we were good enough to get that goal. And bear in mind, we lacked a lot of our attacking players. You know, maybe in 6 or 7 weeks' time, with, you know, fit players back and new signings in place, we win that game 3-1. We win that game 4-1. Maybe, maybe not. But the fact is that we have played 3 games now at home. I think we should have won and got 3 points. I said to my old man, you know, if you play those 3 games and the 3 away games you've got, and you've got 7 or 8 points, you're in a good place. Well, actually, we've only taken 3 points from them, but we've taken 4 points on the road I didn't expect us to take. So we're in a similar sort of position. So anyway, it's a big week. Let's have a look who's on board with us this morning. Sean Simons, morning, my friend. Kate, morning. Hope you're well. Thank you. I am indeed. Robert Haddon, hope you're feeling better. I am. Thank you. James Addison, same question. I'm Dave Tuplin. Thank you. Andrew Robinson, morning, Gary. Poor game after a wonderful start. Yeah, I thought we played well in the second half, actually, as well. Sean Simons' thoughts on Scully. Said that. That's Reed. Tom Champion is available. Don't get me started. Right player, wrong time. Too many injured at the moment. Andrew Robinson, story of our season. Kev, morning, Gaz. Any news on Scully? No news on him, mate. Just obviously all the best for your back operation. I don't know if you've had it or you're going to have it at the moment, or what the crack is. I know you said a couple of weeks ago that it was coming up, so hope that goes okay. Daz Reed, it's in our model. People need to understand that. That's about the transfers. Kate, good point here. Lincoln aren't a big club, especially when compared to majority in the division. I'd say that if we sorted the division into size, we'd be around 17th, 18th, which is usually where we finish. Yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree with that. And what we're aspiring to do is climb to 12th, somewhere like that, and then establish ourselves at that level. But we've got to remember where we are. James Bride says we definitely need a beast up top. Daz Reed says I worry about Tashtik. He lacks physical attributes, needs to man up a little bit. Yeah, I think he's getting up to pace with League One. I think he's a nice footballer, without a doubt. Connor Pierce says morning to you. Steve Turner says morning to you. Adam Butler, a bit concerning how many headers our centre halves lost on Saturday. Yeah, I thought Regan Poole won more. It'd be interesting. I'll look at the stats. I thought Powdy looked a little bit off, actually. He's had a good start to the season. So, yeah, it is a little bit of a concern. Reece Marshall, what sort of lineup do you expect for the game tonight? A different one to Saturday. I think he'll start Charlie Kendall. I wouldn't be surprised if Jack Diamond doesn't get game time. Charles Vernon will almost certainly start. I wouldn't be surprised if Ocean Gallagher doesn't get a run out, to be fair. Joe Morell's not getting in the Pompey team. If only he's injured, John. I think he's out for an extended period, or he certainly has been. So if he is back and he's only on the bench, it's because he's been injured, and similar to like Vernon, missed a bulk of pre-season. And Kev, thanks. You had the op 3 weeks ago, doing great. Good. I'm pleased for that, mate. Best thing I ever did. New lease of life it gave me with my back op. So thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed this. Not sure if I'll get another one done. I'll be on hand on deadline day to bring you all the news as it happens. Who knows? We might even have some more news tomorrow if we can get something done early. I expect it to be a relatively busy week, but then I expected that last time and it didn't happen. So look, just remember that whatever happens, we're still a League One club. We're not in the bottom 4. There's plenty to be positive about. We are looking decent. Some of the players from last season that we needed to step up, like Max and Lass and Sean Rowan, are stepping up. For a work in progress. That management duo, Mark Kennedy, Mike Garrity, you know, they're trying to do the right things. And if this season we were to finish 17th or 18th and then pick up again next season with a year further down the line, it wouldn't be the worst thing. So if we don't get the players that you think that we need over the course of the next couple of days, let's just stick with the boys and give them a chance. By all means, be critical when it's deserved, but let's, you know, just make sure we give the team a chance. All right, wonderful. Thanks very much, everybody. I hope you have a great Tuesday, and I'll speak to you again soon. Cheers.